Have we met?
Just so you know, for the sake of that, the PG sets that I'm on, I'm gonna record this video. So if anybody does not consent, you can actually wave at me, and or if you want to be anonymous in this, because it's
I
gonna be
haven't consent.
really you got it. You got it.
It will be for educational
Yeah,
purposes.
it's for educational purpose. So, oh, he's
Oh, no worries, go ahead.
Yes. By the way, nice to meet you all. My name is Sarah. I hope you can all hear me well.
Yeah.
Nice,
Okay.
nice. So yeah, today's workshop is very simple. It has to do with thinking about or rethinking about how we sort of make, and some of the challenges we face when we encounter um, like roadblocks in our way of making, and how we deal with it in the studio and all that. So the workshop is built in the age of everything. How do we create from nothing? you know uh, and it's just because, let me just sit real quick. And it's just because obviously we live in an era where there is proliferation of images and information, and even ideas and things like that. So in an age where things are more in, they come to us in the form of abundance, how do we deal with it as creatives? How do we see the things that we really want to use? How do we make deliberate choices uh, in this kind of world? Or basically, how do we slow down? How do we go back to sort of pick up some of the things we left as kids? You think about being a kid.
How then manages a care wallet on behalf of their customers, and when
1 second. Is it muted? I think it is. Guys, can you hear me now? Nice, nice. Sorry about the echo. Yeah. So as I was saying, it has to do with we having to go back and picking up some of the things we left as kids, because I feel that art in itself has to do with freedom. When we talk about art, we are talking about freedom. But as educators or scholars or academicians that have sort of gone through art in a channel of the contemporary art education, we sort of get told all the time that it is important to be free. But there are also these conventional ways of teaching art that sort of limits our creative, potentials. And it took me a very long time as an artist to be able to sort of kill many of those roadblocks. And that is why I feel like it's important to share some of the formulas that I've learned through tons of research, through tons of experiments and mistakes and all that. And it's simply put, the things that I've come across that I feel is very useful. I would just choose one, which is, to not think at all when you're about to create. And that's what we are going to do today. We are going to sort of disembody ourselves, and try not to really think too much about what we want to do, or about material, or about time, about the ideas we want to put on there, but just, make. So yeah, let's get going.
You think that's all the information? We have to make sure that you guys actually understand. I hope we made it clear what we're trying to do here. Because, we live in London, we're fortunate to be in the Western world, and it means we have access to a vast majority of resources. It means we often don't have to think about, oh, can I afford to get this paint? If we want some new equipment, we can just go into Jackson Art or Casa Art. But how does the creative in Asia or Africa, how do they come up with creations? And that's why often we see that, they're able to come up with unique things, such as they're creating their own planes or cars out of materials that often we would abandon. And that's also why you see that we find a lot of artists who are into sustainability. So maybe materials that we would otherwise throw away, like motherboards and things like that, they're able to actually incorporate it into their style of work. So if we look at someone like Eddie Kamonga, although obviously, you know, he's from the Congo, we've seen that he's able to take that concept and incorporate it into his actual work. So just to add to what Larry said about creating as a child, just finding everything and not limiting ourselves to just the canvas or just the typical form, I guess, that we use to create as artists in the West, and just to be free.
Exactly. So yeah, one thing that I would want to sort of acknowledge about art education is the fact that it's always given us this understanding, or is giving us this gift of allowing ourselves to create a particular language as creatives, you know. So we always consider ourselves as people who are sort of creating our own, if it's not like vocabularies, we are creating our own kind of, you know, sentences and words, and trying to use those sentences and words to sort of create a language that is meaningful, you know, a language that is communicatable. But one thing that the art education sort of limits itself in terms of language is also the fact that it does not acknowledge the fact that one person can be bilingual or trilingual or, you know, quadrilingual and so on and so forth, you know. So for me, I believe that we can actually create different forms of languages to sort of communicate in different channels. And one example would be Virgil Abloh, you know, who recently passed. May his soul rest in peace. I mean, Virgil was someone who studied, you know, structural engineering during his BA, and then went on to do architecture in his MA, and came on, you know, climbed the ladder of like fashion to get to the point where he actually created his own fashion house called the Off-Whites, which is very successful and thriving these days, you know, and also became, as you all know, the director of menswear Louis Vuitton. And looking at the things he did, and I've actually been a follower of him for a long time now. Virgil actually collaborated with the BMW that is it BM? Yeah, the BMW that's about to be launched is, you know, the electric one. He was the collaborator with the company to be able to sort of create the wheels for the car. You know, he also did a couple of projects with Kia, Nike, you know, Adidas, almost all the powerhouses of fashion and, you know, and design in a sense. And so when we look at someone like that, he's more like the epitome of what we mean when we talk about this whole idea of fluidity, you know, as a creative. He was able to sort of flow in and out of different spaces and different disciplines. And that's what I think we should be able to think about when we are looking at what we are about to create today. So enough of the talk, let's just have fun. And, you know, as I said, let's go back in time, look around, find what you can work with, and, you know, let's get the ball rolling. So yeah.
So before we do that, it'd be good to ask if you guys have any questions for us, if it's quite clear where we're going with this idea of creating out of nothingness, so that we can expand on it before we get started.
Just wave if you have any questions or not.
If I'm honest, I didn't hear that. Yeah, same here.
Oh, you didn't hear? Sarah was saying, if anyone has any questions about what I've said, you know, we can answer that before we start the workshop. If not, we can just.
So
Okay. My question.
Yeah.
Okay.
My question. One question is, I can definitely see like a relation between your practice and Virgil's in terms of collage and piecing lots of histories and memories together. I'm just interested why Virgil in particular.
Virgil, yeah, for me, it's more like I chose Virgil because he's a perfect example, first of all, you know, because he's always been like the person that I've always wanted to be in terms of just being a creative and practicing in this current time of you know, our history. And we've always heard over and over and over and over and over again by, you know, academicians or by educators to sort of think about freedom, creative freedom in our ways of making. But sometimes we find ourselves being still limited by them when we bring some of the things we've created out of freedom. You know, you come and they question you, why did you do this? Where is your reference coming from? You know, do you know about this person? Have you looked here? Have you looked there? You know, but I feel like it's important to sometimes just keep a blind eye, you know, and just post-rationalize things, you know, like it's important to be able to sometimes rethink about the things you've made when that thing is done without having to think too much, because there is limitation, there is a form of editing that goes into planning when you start thinking about a creative process, you know. And Virgil was one person who was able to do it with excellence, you know. I remember watching his talk at Harvard University in 2017, and he was talking about the fact that he could, you know, just think about making in a way that he didn't really want to deviate from what was already there. He always wanted to sort of like edit, but still leave room for the actual thing to still, you know, sort of penetrate into what he's already done. And he did the same when he went to Rhodes University, where he was supposed to give a talk, but 7 minutes before the talk, he went into one of the you know, studios, and then he gathered a couple of students around him. As you know, he was someone who always facilitated and pushed the idea of working with young people. So he sort of gathered young students around, and he made, you know, a clothing kind of design out of the Rhodes, you know, sweater. And I think it's just interesting and mind-blowing how he thinks and how he makes these kinds of, you know, simple, witty, deliberate choices when he's even like being expected to do something big, and how he sort of picks little things that are commonly found around us and sort of magnifies it for us to be able to see it in different kind of lights, you know. So that's why I chose Virgil as so I've developed I've developed this approach called the Virgil approach. And yeah, that the Virgil approach is an approach that sort of acknowledges the approach that knows no fears, you know, the approach that has no boundaries and knows no bounds, the approach that sort of understand the importance of mistakes and sort of builds upon mistakes to be able to see that mistakes get to a point where it's actually easily repeated as, you know, as a skill set rather than a mistake. So let's say you are in your studio and like your leg kicks a bucket of paint on the ground, how it spills and what it creates. Can you actually try deliberately repeating that same kind of process to be able to do it in a point where you can even close your eyes to kick that bucket and have it fall the same way? You know, when you are able to sort of look at mistake in that way and tackle mistake in that kind of sense, then you create a certain kind of language and ownership to what you are doing. And it no longer becomes a fluke, but rather it becomes something that comes out of, you know, deliberation. Yeah.
Just one thing, so because you were saying about academia versus creativity, and we want to make some stuff, but it just instantly made me think about when you say about mistake and how to repeat that and how to like to develop that to be like more of a natural thing that you can do as second nature. Reminds me of the Vivian Zhang paintings that are in Hayward.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah, let's not go further. Let you do your thing, man.
All right. So yeah, I think you guys should also, you know, quickly introduce yourselves. Like, yes, just so for the record, you know.
Nana?
I should go.
Nana?
Yeah, Nana, go on.
Okay. Emmanuel Pempe. I'm doing my MA in design at Oslo National Academy of Arts. My first year, yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah, so far so good.
Good to hear.
Oh, that's the much I can say.
I'm Andrew Hart. I'm a painter, artist. I do a visiting lecturer as well. I've done the PG cert last year. So I kind of understand what Larry's going through, but I also appreciate the fact that in line with what he's thinking about in terms of creative teaching, I think it's like it pushes it forwards because it will just make it's really sparks bell hooks like her challenge to teaching and how we can experiment and be playful with the pushing forwards of teaching and what we can get out of those approaches. But yeah, I'm Andrew.
Yeah, Sarah, you can go on.
Oh, you guys see me? Hi everyone. I am Sarah and I'm also an artist and a painter. And I happen to share the same studio building as Larry.
Nice. Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Ibrahim?
Okay, well, I'm Ibrahim. I'm currently in the UK. Actually, I'm in London, Larry.
Oh,
This
wow.
time, no. This time, you're not gonna,
Yeah.
sneak your way out like you did last time. I'm telling you. Anyways, this year I was in France with my mom. And it seems like I'm gonna travel somewhere very soon. I don't know where, but build a new home for myself. Yeah, I was studying with Larry and Andrew at RCA. I did curating, but it seems like I'm doing everything but that. Yeah, and I'm also finishing my PG cert, so I'm looking forward to be done with that. I can't wait. Oh my God.
Congratulations.
The army, join the army. Yeah, Ibrahim is like, one of the young bloods that are bringing radical thinking when it comes to, curation and also, the idea of integration in the art world and all that. So,
Which we
yeah.
actually got.
Yeah, so watch out for Ibrahim's work. He actually did a work with Bamako Encounters with one of the most important curators that I really admire, Bonaventure. Yeah, so yeah, Ibrahim is amazing when it comes to curation. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm Larry, the god of collage. I'm just joking. Yeah, a student of collage, and I think about collage in many different forms and different layers. I think about collage when it comes to sound. I think about it when it comes to even, the whole idea of racial histories, political tensions, the idea of making, even in the studio, summoning of materials. I think about collage. I think about collage in relation to family. How do you relate as a family? I think about it in terms of collaboration and even in my practice as an artist as well, and in my teaching. So I deliberately select knowledge from different parts of the world, and I share it with different people from different backgrounds in the classroom and outside the classroom. So that's literally who I am and what I'm trying to be. Yeah, so yeah, let's get
you guys
dirty.
have some materials with you.
I do.
As we mentioned, we're trying to do this out of nothingness. So you can literally use the most random things that you otherwise wouldn't even look at. It could be batteries, it could be a shoe, socks, it could be a pen, pencil.
One thing that I forgot to mention, sorry about that, Sarah, is the fact that, when you look at an image, the image is also an object, right? In as much as it's an image of a captured moment elsewhere, it's also something tangible that I can hold. And also when you cut into an image like this, I don't know if you can see, but there is a hole in the image now, you know, and that hole is more like it could be a point of entry or a point of departure. And also at the same time, this thing that I've cut out of this image also can become something that can stand on its own. So in thinking about your work, you know, you can think about how to sort of juxtapose, superimpose, how to sort of build upon, build out, cut out, you know, tear around and all that. So yeah, let's just think about the little things and the easy things we do without thinking on a daily basis. You know, it's more like dressing up or cooking or singing in a shower or writing, you know. So yeah, just think about it that way. So I'm not even gonna think as we do it. I'm just gonna tear images randomly like this, you know, tear things around like that.
But Larry, what's the assignment right now? I didn't hear.
So the assignment in itself is to look around, find whatever you have, you know. The whole idea was that I didn't want people to actually plan or pre-plan before this. I'm just trying to make a point, you know, that failure is always important, and it's always something that we can still rethink about as success. And this thing that I'm telling you about is tried and true, you know. So that's literally what I'm trying to prove. The tried and true aspect of failure. Yeah. And it's not like we can't talk as we make, you know, we can still have a talk. Will you take your time? Yeah. So, let's do this now.
No, no, no. So guys, as we're working, try to be as relaxed as possible. Think of when you see a 2-year-old creating, they don't think about their next step. They just pick up that pencil and see the wall they want to target, and they just start creating. So let's be as free as possible and not think too much about, you know, should I put this here, should I put this here?
Yeah, and also just to top up on Andrew, your question about why Virgil is also because, you know, he's one of the people that made people like myself believe that it's possible, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all not to be controversial or anything.
What?
I don't start a discussion, but you know, there's also quite a backlash in relation to his ideas of appropriation.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people say that he rides on top of others' ideas, which is a little bit, it just depends on how you see that. Do you know what I mean? Because a collage is taking someone's image, chopping it up and putting it together and making something new from it. So it's just in terms of like what's happening in the art schools, in terms of appropriation by students who are not understanding what it is to be kind of original, or what they can use and what they can't use, or how they can use things and how they can't use things. Because I feel the art schools definitely putting a lot of students out in the world who don't think about the idea of appropriation in terms of creativity, because the amount of time that they spent trying to, how can I say, copy something, they could have used their own creative energies to create something.
Yeah, but wait, I remember listening to Virgil on this, and he said that, you know, he asked a simple question: do we need more chairs? Like, we don't necessarily need to.
Yeah, he says the best way to to build buildings is not to build anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, you know, that kind of school of thought that he was sort of trying to educate us on. You know, he actually understood the making culture, and he knew that, you know, we all live on the shoulders of, you know, many histories of alteration, and many histories of, you know, not just alteration, but also I'm trying to find a suitable.
You know what it is? It's not, as we mature, we understand it, but in terms of teaching, BA students don't understand it, and they need to like learn that they have their own element of creativity, and they should start at that point first. You know what I'm saying? Like, your work has its own identity. I can tell that's you. Collage is collage, right? But actually, I can tell a Larry collage.
Yeah.
So that's element of creativity, that's you in there. So I understand, I can always know your collages.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's the kind of difference where students, BA students, particularly in the early stages, they just don't understand like where and what and how. And sometimes it's cultural because they're taught to copy their masters, but then it puts them into problems when they start to see stuff around them that they, do you know what I mean? It's just something, particularly in terms of teaching. But I've had the students come run across the room and say, "Oh, they copied my work." Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like because this is taking images. It's like taking stuff, because it's also just like enabling like the Picasso saying you can just take whatever you want kind of thing, and it's not so. Because remember, that's what Picasso said, a good artist copies, great artists steal. Now that isn't something that we should be encouraging people to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, how do we educate that element of like, for example, and Andrea Hamilton, she just takes images and blows them up like 10 times the size. But then those images are 50 years old, and there's no copyright on them, and she can actually use them. Some are a bit spurious, some she can use, some she can't. But it's that like idea, because also just been thinking about cultural appropriation yesterday when I saw the Prada Adidas campaign. And it's like, would you have done that if Skepta wasn't wearing the Adidas, or if roadmen that you abhor, you know, if you didn't see that community aspect, would you be doing that collaboration kind of? These are just things that we need to, I always think about, is how it can empower, but how it can also disempower.
Yeah, for me, it's also about the, you know, the boldness of not thinking too much. You know, everything is there, everything already there, and as you said, it's about not just copying but stealing, and that is also my point about even figuration these days. You know, it saddens my heart to see artists sort of representing what is already there, but it's important that they push what is already there into a platform, or onto a platform where we begin to see them anew. You know, so it's interesting how Virgil's approach can sort of be seen in different lights. But for me, it's about the process, you know, his process, rather than objects. You know, it has nothing to do with the object. It's about the philosophy, the kind of the kind of work ethic that goes into your studio moments. You know, the time where you are sort of in your own confinement, and how you sort of put things together, and the ways in which you feel. Because for me, as an artist, you have a responsibility. You know, the responsibility is also, in as much as you are teaching people, it's also your responsibility to use your own processes to grow. You know, so when you see artists stuck in one moment of their practice where they've discovered, oh, this is what the market wants, and they are constantly repeating that in different colors and in different scale and different textures, it saddens my heart, because, you know, the world is actually theirs to take, and there are so many things they can actually do by you know, pushing themselves, saying, hey, I've come to the realization that when you put 1 + 1 together, it becomes 2, you know, and now I want to go away from that and try maybe 1 + kinky
equals Kenke +1.
Because the kinky, you know. Yeah, so it's that, you know, it's that kind of willingness to put everything you've built and understood on the line, and question it, and try to push it in an angle that it actually begins to speak to you. It teaches you, the maker, something, you know. And that's why it's always important not to be thinking too much, because there is a lot that the material can teach you. There is a lot that the object itself, when it's made, can teach you. So you disembody yourself, you let it flow, and then you come back to it with a different realization, with a different kind of, you know, eye to it.
And the talk of originality in our contemporary scene sometimes become a dicey topic. One time I saw this thing on the internet where this designer was accused of copying some design from some other person who did it previously. And I was asking myself, do they know for a fact that this designer actually copied? Or could it be that it's a coincidence that this actually has his own, probably in his own closet thing, is an original design, which before he designed that wasn't even aware of this current design that is on the internet, or that people know. And I was having this discussion with my lecturer, and he said that even supposing that those two designs are akin in visual representations, their experiences which led to that particular design is different. So in that sense, although they look alike, the designs are not actually the same.
They arrive to them as well. But yeah, there is coincidence. We know that. We know there's coincidence. The world's just like this kind of strange place sometimes, this magical place sometimes, and things, you know, we talk about the collective consciousness, where someone in one side of the world is thinking the same kind of thought or idea of someone in a completely different location, and they happen around the same time to make the similar work in the air kind of thing, and it travels, those thoughts kind of travel around, and that's how we pick them up. There's those kinds of ideas around creativity. But yeah, I suppose it's just that what I really take from this is about the essence of the creativity and what you can do with that, and how you utilize that.
Yeah, and also let's not forget, there is also a material culture that constantly, you know, flow, you know, and that material culture also sort of informs us as creatives in terms of the ways in which we think about the material. Let's say there is a new kind of material that has emerged. Let's say Photoshop, right? Came in, and all of a sudden, many artists had to think about what they could do with Photoshop, which already comes with its own set of tools, color palette, you know, and all that. And so sometimes it could be easily we can actually be easily influenced by the materials that are available, and that can bring all these kinds of coincidence, you know. Let's think about NFT, for instance. You know, it's made people who claimed the title of, who assumed the authority of painters, now gone back into like new media arts. You know, they've gone back into creating with like Photoshop and all these like online.
Thing artists always have done and have just moved along with technology.
Yeah.
Some of it embrace, some of it don't. Some really utilize, some of them really don't.
Yeah.
And it, when you talk about, there's a really good essay, I'll send it to you. I think it's by Tim Bochner, and he talks about remediation and how we use new technologies in art and painting. And those are the things, as you say, kind of shifted them and made them move around. Printing, camera, all of these sorts of technologies that made the way we approach all of these ideas. And in design, graphic design, from the ideas of copy and paste, like actually photocopying and cutting it out and pasting it was a thing. You tell anyone who's like post-90s, they think that's like a computer, it's just a Command C and nothing else. So just move time, I think, the technologies, and people approach the technology in one way or another. If you think about mobile phone, new pen, laptop, how we store our images, how we use our images. That's as much of the embracement of digital technology as the actual making part using digital technology. So we all have embraced it in one way or another. But it's like, as you say, kenke. You eat kenke, you're eating some digital kenke or some new kenke. You're going to eat original kenke, isn't it? Of course. We've got this new GM cassava. Yeah. You're going to say, no, it's all right. I'll have one that's grown from the ground. So it's like that. It's personal choice.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm done with mine. So let give a shout if you are done with yours as well, and we can look at them and discuss. Yeah, Prempe is also done. Ibrahim, are you done?
Yes, I'm done. I was listening to you talking.
Oh, Sarah is almost done soon. Yeah, but it's interesting how, you know, these kinds of like talks, like the forms they take, and even, you know, the ways in which they inform us in our own kind of directions. Like, yeah, what Andrew is saying is very much valid, you know, and very like it's challenged me to think about many things. But in as much as I really understand those ideas, you know, I also believe that we live in a world where everything that is put out there, you know, is meant to be shared, you know. So someone can be, oh, I think I saw something. Oh, Andrew is well. Okay. Someone can be like thinking about other people's work in a different way. Like others too can be thinking about taking other people's work the same way and representing it in a different kind of setting. You know, it's like trying to fit a square in a triangle, or a triangle in a circle, you know, like it's like that, but it's always the ways in which we go about it and the intentions behind it that makes it original or not. Because this same idea of original and the copy, I was even thinking about it in my own practice, like, because sometimes I make works and I feel like, okay, this came out of a copy of a work that I've already done. So during the pandemic, I decided to challenge myself. You know, I made collages, small collages, scanned them, and then, you know, printed them bigger, and then repainted them. And all of a sudden they became works that were copy of originals, but the originals became sketches of those copies, and the copies became the original. I don't know if it makes sense, but yeah, when one of you happens to come to the studio, I'll show you some of them and you see how it, talking about. Yeah. Andrew is reconnecting.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Welcome back, Andrew. No worries.
My phone just keeps doing all sorts of stuff. I'm not using this phone to do Zooms anymore. Did I miss anything?
Not really. I was just talking about this whole idea of, the copy and the original, and how that has even led me to create the kind of work I'm creating now.
Yeah.
Not as in the work I'm doing now for the workshop, but like the works I've been experimenting on in my studio. Yeah. There is constant information around these days, especially when you are someone who sort of a constant, representer on the social media platforms. Like you go to your studio, or on your way to your studio, you decide to scroll through your Instagram or your Facebook, and all these images begin to pop up, all these news begin to pop up, all these types of colors that people are wearing, all these makeup types that people are also wearing, all these ideas that people are trying to share, all these quotes that people are saying, and you get all these things running through your mind, and you get to the studio. So there is always some kind of remnants of these things that sort of surface within the things we create. And for me, I've actually deliberately decided to focus on picking things from these spaces. Like, some people may choose not to, but still may have them represented when they are making their own stuff in their studio. But I choose to go with a deliberate, understanding of like using these ready-mades and using these ideas, because I feel like, I'm more like an empty vessel to be filled with infinite potentials and, understanding. So yeah, but that's just me.
Does it fill up and empty out?
What?
Do you fill up and empty out?
An empty out?
Do you fill up? So you're saying like an empty vessel. I'm saying, yeah. Do you fill up and empty out, or is it just a constant circular in, out, in, out?
It's more like a constant feeling, but also it's when it's filled up, it's bottled and covered and placed somewhere safe, like, so whenever I'm going to work on a different kind of project, I go in with absolutely no idea, even though I have tons of ideas that I can actually work with, but I always choose not to go with what I already have, but rather allow the journey, allow the process, allow the encounters to sort of lead me on, And I think it's actually one of the most healthiest ways of creating, because a linear kind of way of creating can sometimes be very unhealthy, I believe, because we grow, right? And we grow on a constant basis, like whether we like it or not, we grow. So the things you develop interest in always change, unless of course you've decided to really stick to a particular moment in time in your life, which is what I was trying to make us do with this workshop, which is why I said we should go back, and bring in that childishness, that childish moment of our lives where like breaking your mother's glass was not a problem. or putting your father's phone in the, you know, in the WC was like
Was never a problem.
was never a problem.
Did my phone call your name?
Yeah.
Why are you touching my phone?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Sarah, give us a shout when you're done.
Oh yeah.
I think I've seen Lorenza. Lorenza, hello.
Hey, Lorenzo.
Hi.
Welcome, Lorenza.
Welcome.
You're a bit late, but good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, I was gonna join before, but I realized I didn't have an account on this phone, so I had to make another one. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So what are you guys working on?
Yeah, we've been working on some collages, you know, and we've been talking about different forms of making and also different, you know, ideas that informs our choices when we make, you know, and also the politics of making and the material choices and, you know, art education in general. And we are trying to basically find an alternative route that is very much sustainable and more universal to sort of help you flow freely in your studio, you know,
Yeah.
times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
yeah. So after
What did you say?
we've all created something, you know, we created out of no plans. Yeah, we created out of plans, but rather looking at the things that are available to us at the very present moment and then working with them. So yeah, we've all been able to create something and we are going to talk about that in a jiffy. So yeah.
Okay.
So I'm gonna show mine first. This is what I've done. I don't know if you can see it, but
Nice, Larry.
yeah, this is what I just made. You can see that it's, I just pick up a simple idea of just working irregularly. So how do you use irregular shapes to create something that is more irregular? But the starting point was regular stuff. So there was a couple of images that I sort of decided to tear apart without thinking, without, you know, hesitating as to where the tear would go. And then I brought them together to create a different kind of face. But I didn't want the face to be seen as a face, but rather a face that is like staring through a kind of, you know, portal. And also in terms of the portal, I didn't want to do the Star Wars portal or the kind of portals we see in a sci-fi movie. You know, I wanted to just go with like the flow of my hand, let my hand lead me. So I created this kind of crazy stuff and then I put it on the face. And this is what we have, a constellation of different forms of vocabularies coming together. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, who wants to go next? Okay.
Everyone will see.
Come close, bring it close.
Bring it closer. Hey, pressure. Can you guys see?
Oh, nice.
So guys,
Nice.
it's very, very different for me. If you've seen my work, I'm a figurative painter, but I focus mostly on portraits, but it's never anything like this. Collage is something I'm very, very new to. And I'm someone who, although Larry teaches us not to overthink, I tend to think about everything that I do because there's a lot of made up shapes that go into my work. So Larry touched on it, like irregularities, and I put a lot of irregularity in terms of shapes into my work to form a regular image, if that makes sense. So as you can see here, I've placed an eye on the neck, and it's like, I just decided, why can't I put an eye in the neck? After all, there is a saying that, I don't know if you guys have heard it, that you often say that, you know, when it comes to, when we're looking at relationships, that the man is the head and the woman is the neck. And I believe that it's the women who have the eyes to see. So why can't I place the neck and the eye? Because in order to turn left and right, we need to see where we're going. So that's why I've placed that there. And then if you see the eyes here as well, these are actually two different eyes that I've placed together. One is upside down and one is facing the correct way. And then I decided to just give her a little bit of hair because there's so much focus on hair and our crown and everything, which is important, but hair is also not everything as well. So,
and what's interesting for me about the hair is that it's countable hair. You can count it.
we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 7 is intentional because 7 is the number of completion. So that let me know that this work was complete.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, perfect.
So, yeah.
So who wants to go next?
Well, I had no clue what we were going to do. And I think you guys are at an advantage because you are already in a studio setting where you already have scissors, you already have images to work with. You know, although you might say it is impromptu, but still you have the resources to work with. Basically in my room, nothing, literally just a pencil and a pen and just some papers here. So I decided to, actually I was going to draw. So when I was sharpening my pencil, what do you call it?
The piece.
The lead.
Yeah.
The lead of a pencil. I used that one to form some veins. So I folded these papers and I rubbed it onto the lead pencils to create these kind of patterns, which I'm probably going to work with textiles later on.
Wow.
Because I feel they are interesting patterns to behold. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
All of this just now.
That's really cool, you know. And I was just going to say that regardless of the lack of materials, I see a jacket there, you could have chewed the jacket, you know, or break your headphones into two. And there was going to be some kind of configuration, you know. But yeah, really good.
Hold them closer, Nana.
Yeah.
Hold them close to the camera.
Yeah, hold them close.
Like this.
And steady, nice and slow.
Right.
So I folded these ones into like a ball like this, and I just rubbed it onto the surface to create these patterns. So this is what I got from my little experiment here.
How cool is that? And do you think if you were in your studio, you'd have thought of this? If you were in your studio where every luxury was there, where, you know, there was a printer, there was a laptop, there was this, there was proper garments to work with.
Well, knowing what you do and knowing the kind of setup, I'll probably try and do some collage as well. But initially, I was trying to also do a collage, but the stuff that I cut up weren't really matching up. So I decided to then I saw this, then let me just do it again, because this one are not fit for collage work. So then probably if I was in a proper studio like we have there, I would have obviously not have been able to do this, which I understand the purpose of this work now, because yeah,
cool, great.
That's nothingness.
Yeah. Who wants to go next?
I'll try a little.
Cool.
So I just recently we've been on a lot of kind of cameras and I'm on my telephone, so it's going to look really, to me it looks really small. So I was thinking about that, the camera and how we can, when we're this discussion around around technology and embracing technology. So I try to think more in terms of the camera that I'm using and the screen that we have in front of us, how I can make kind of not digitally responding, but something that I can use the camera in front of me to create some sort of collage. So my painting, my jacket being in there, and then there's a bag of crisps that are on my studio table. So I tried to bring those slightly in there. And then this platter, so I've got a box next to me, and this is just the stuff that's in the box. And I tried to bring this into the image, just to, I don't know how it looks, but on my phone, because it's so small, it does something interesting. I was just thinking about how you can utilize this camera and the space to maybe create some sort of collage type, but playing. So again, it's kind of spontaneous because the original one seemed a bit more ordered, but I couldn't capture that again. Do you know what I mean? So I can just hold that. That is a box. I want that edge there. How do I get it to be like that? And then getting a little bit of color around the edge.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just all starts to get. But it's, yeah, I was very much interested in playing with what's in front of me as a kind of, as a drawing or instrument, like, you know.
Yeah, I hope you can send us the image you took of it, like, yeah, when we are done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Ibra.
Well, I haven't been as expensive as you've been. It's a low budget production. There's no color, there's no pen, there's nothing. Like it's
nice.
I just recoup paper that I had in my notebook. I must say I had a weird afternoon, and perhaps what I did was just a reflection of my mindset, really, which is looking in front of me and not thinking too much. So look at my low-cost MacBook Pro. Can you see?
Yes, it's right.
Yeah, so it's nice because it's respectful of the environment. You know, it doesn't cost. You don't have to charge it.
Oh no!
You can just you can use it actually. Nice. I don't know. It's flat as well. You can put it in your pocket.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
Yeah.
And it's very very conceptual.
Yeah.
What inch is this? Like a 12-inch?
Huh?
Is that a 12-inch?
It's a 5-inch, I think.
Wow. You send me a picture of that.
But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't have many things. It's not my room. I'm subletting here.
No,
I have books. But
that's the idea. You know, what you've created is not something you would normally think of if you were in a space where like there was abundance of everything, like, you know, that you would normally create with. Like this is the whole essence of the course. This is the whole essence of the
nothingness.
Yeah, and what you've created, I mean, it's mind blowing. You know, it's
Yo, Larry, stop. This is what you're doing now. It's called sugar coating.
No.
Look up.
It's not sugar coating, because like I can actually write a book about just this thing that you showed me. Like there's a whole lot of information. There's a whole lot of radicality to it. You know, there's a whole lot of understanding that if I was told to sort of draw, I would not maybe think about drawing in that sense, like drawing something that is also an object, that is also something that can be used, you know, like this is it, you know. Yeah.
You guys are too kind.
The whole idea was to force yourself to think outside of the realms in which you would usually think. And that's exactly what you've been able to achieve with it.
Yeah.
And everyone
Pep talk.
No, seriously.
I mean, I enjoy hearing this.
When you see children creating, when they say, "Mommy, look, I love this for you," they're not thinking, they're just taking this and so that's the whole idea, to not overthink it, because as artists, we can become too rigid in a way that we think. So it's just to be free and fluid in how we do things. And that's exactly what we achieve. And everyone else as well, because we were forced to do it.
So now I have a few questions for us to discuss. Like I made these quick questions, like I noted them down. And one is, did you ever feel restricted in your creative process? Like, you know, before this workshop, like, have you ever been in a situation where you really wanted to create, but you couldn't just move on because there was a lack of maybe material, or a lack of idea, or like a lack of, you know, motivation or something like that? Like,
pandemic, man, that mashed up a lot of just things. Especially the first lockdown was one of those mashed up creativity, but also, I couldn't go out. We couldn't go out, kind of thing. So it was in the same way as this. What was to hand? So I ended up just making like A4 drawings, but that being really successful, and then that being like a large piece. So yeah, that restriction's always been an interesting thing, I think, for creatives, for people, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. I always say, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
It just drives something in us.
Mm-hmm.
It drives something this is something that can't stop. I could have a studio in my head if I wanted to. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like that.
Yep. And I always talk, like when I'm talking to students, I always begin by saying, the greatest movements of art history were all born out of, crisis, So for me, when the pandemic came, it was like the opportunity for me to also bring up something that I had never seen, in the art world. So I remember the first experiment I did was like, I had a 1-month-old son, and I was thinking about the uncertainty of the time, and I didn't know what to do. There was no studio, and I remember starting to fold his diapers in a certain kind of way whenever he sort of like peed. So I decided to use the peed diapers, folded them in a kind of way, and I started writing about most of the things that I was listening to on the news on there, like caption of news, 10 people dead today, 500 people dead today, the prime minister said this person said that. All those things were documented on the diapers. That was the first project I did for the pandemic, like during the early stage. And then I went on to sort of expand on that by thinking about scale, because for me, scale is also a material. So I just picked up the idea of scale and also the idea of copy. And I ran with that. I came to the studio, picked up some magazines that I had stored, and then I went back to the studio to create works that were literally A5 or A6 kind of 6 scale. And then whilst I was making them, I was thinking about how I had lost the luxury of like scale, like big scale. And I realized that actually I live in a world where I could actually scan the works and reprint them as actual works, as, like original works. But when I rescanned all the works, I realized, actually, I could actually put more on it, because the lockdown was obviously no more. And I had the luxury of studio again to myself. So I decided to actually do something with my hands on the work again. And I started repainting all the collages I had made, but printed bigger. And now, like, I've created some kind of works that I don't think I've ever seen, in the history of art, before. And it's crazy. Like it's everyone who's seen it, like, is easily running with it. Like they're like, oh wow, this is great. And I think, Andrew, when you come to the studio, you see it. Ibrahim as well. Like Sarah has seen it already. It's crazy. Yeah. So that's the gift lockdown gave me.
Give me a day and a time, because these promises done.
I'm coming with you. We'll go together.
Yeah, okay. Then you guys decide on a day and let me know, because I'm ready. Now I'm gonna be spending more time in the studio. So any day and any time you want to come, let me know. Yeah.
Let's just say it will definitely leave you speechless. And
it's great. It's great. I mean, I can show you images, but the images won't do justice. Yeah. So
because they're huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
what, next Saturday or Sunday? What's Larry? You go to church on Sunday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Friday, Ibrahim. Next Friday.
Next Friday is when?
Next
Friday. I'm leaving on the 15th already.
It's like the 12th.
Is on the 14th.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll try for next Thursday or Friday. Just let me know.
Nice. The second question I have is like, do you think you will ever be stuck in generating ideas after this workshop? Do you think you would, there is going to be a point in your practice where you are stuck and you don't know what to do? Because there is a whole lot at stake. Yes, Andrew, yes. there's a whole lot of things at stake for us as artists, and also, yeah, especially for us as, artists of color, and I believe that we've had so, like, a very huge, gap in the history of art where when we were silent, like we couldn't speak. So now that we have the chance to speak, there, you can't really go by a day and not say anything, in the studio. So this
Yeah.
exercise will also make you understand that there is always something to work with wherever, whenever. When you're on the plane, you can call for tissue papers or whatever, and try to just say something, wherever you find yourself. Like, there is a need to speak. I remember hearing this from a movie that I was watching. I don't remember the movie, but someone said that when I'm given the chance to speak, I sing, and I felt that was quite profound. So I've also been using that idea for a very long time now, and yeah, it's been working. So yeah, I'm glad to know that no one is going to be stuck now. And did you ever feel like materially limited before this workshop? And do you think you are going to feel that again from now?
I
No, not
mean,
really.
to go back to your point. Sorry, Nana, please go speak.
No, like I'm done. I was saying no, really. That was it. So you can go ahead and make your comment.
I'm sure I'm going to complete what you had in your mind, but I believe, and it goes back to your point, Larry, is that if you see yourself coming into the world as like having less than what the world has to offer, you always start from the premise that you don't have enough to do what you want, but you're still going to do something. So then it's a matter of like, okay, let me do what I can. And then the day I get what I think I need, I will do something more. But then creativity always stems from not having enough or not having everything and making something. Yeah.
That's profound.
Yeah.
That's really profound. Yeah.
That's exactly the whole purpose of this workshop.
Yeah.
Exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. It's about that, the true freedom that we get. So me, when I'm talking to like people, or when I get a chance to be a part of something that is even not art, the first thing I tell myself is that, what is the art to this? So let's say I find myself in a business class. I ask myself, what is the art to business? What is the art to science? What is the art to music? What is the art to eating? What is the art to cooking? That is because when that art comes before whatever discipline that is, then I'm able to actually think about freedom. How do I liberate myself from all the already prevailing, philosophies or ideas or formulas that people have sort of formulated over these years? And how can I divert from that to be able to create my own, and it's always good that we all sort of confront the already prevailing answers with questions, because I believe that is where, the gem is, basically. Yeah.
I completely agree, because even when you look at what makes a great chef, for me, someone who's a good cook is someone who's able to look in a fridge, which majority of people may deem as empty, but make something out of very few things. And that's when you start to enjoy it. But if you're someone who maybe doesn't enjoy cooking, you feel like, oh, there's nothing to eat, I have nothing. Meanwhile, there's so many things that if you really wanted to and you looked at it as less serious, you could come up with something and maybe even create new flavors and tastes that you otherwise wouldn't have created if you weren't forced to, because of the lack of not having.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move to the next question, which is I think we've answered that. So I'm gonna go with the next one, which is are you willing to try new things without fear of criticism? Without the fear of criticism, like, are you willing to like take ownership of a particular process, a particular idea, or a particular, concept, without feeling you're going to be crucified for it, because what you guys have all created are masterpieces, and trust me, they can be put on that platform where they are exhibited for people to come and look at. the amazing things we've done in this very short time that we didn't even plan, you know. So maybe Ibrahim can aid with that, you know, in creating a very quick, a short exhibition for us to exhibit what we what we've made today. But yeah, you know, so let's discuss that. What do you guys think?
I mean, for an artist or a designer, that has always been the case. It doesn't matter how good you feel your work is, it's still going to be subject to a level of criticism. Not everybody is going to be into your idea of creativity. Somebody out there is going to think your work is trash. So criticism and it's just part of the work. So if you are afraid of criticism, then probably not be in the field. Just go do business or something.
I remember I listened to Kanye West talking about this whole concept, and he said he remembered that someone, who was that? Yeah, he remember someone said that yeah, he was having a talk with one tutor who has passed away. Like, she was a lecturer at UAL and she passed away, and she was, you know, the tutor for Alexander McQueen and all that. So Kanye was telling the students about her latter days, you know, when they spent time together. And she said she was very much pissed about many students and the things they make, because before they ever did anything, their parents clapped, you know, and that simple gesture of clapping for a child limited many of the things they could have actually achieved, you know. And I thought that was very profound, listening to Kanye West say this thing, and even looking at, you know, how he sort of kicked down many walls of brass, you know, and how he's been able to sort of navigate spaces we never thought he could, you know, and just juxtaposing that concept to what he does, I think is a very powerful thing, because for you to understand that clapping or like saying, hey, this is very good and all that, you know, is what is meant to be done, then we have nowhere to go. So let's not clap.
And that's where psychology comes into it, because but then that clapping then becomes a cognitive, a positive stimulus, which, you know, if I keep on doing this, I'm going to be rewarded. So it keeps you very limited and trapped.
Yeah.
So maybe we should clap, but not always for the same thing.
Yeah.
Because everyone, if we're being honest, likes to be celebrated, but to not clap for mediocrity, because as parents, especially, our child does something small, we're like, oh, you know, we can't help it. And unfortunately, as we grow older, it is something that we adopt, and it does stay with us. And that can often keep us in a box. And as artists, the very thing that we should be in is in the box. Yeah,
then maybe let's not let the clap get into our heads, you know, but yeah, we can clap for others. But yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting way of looking at art education now, like, you know, the alternatives basically. And I remember when I was coming up as an artist, there were many things that made me go into arts, and one of them is obviously clapping. when I was in nursery, like, you know, I did a few drawings and friends used to clap for me. It was just stickman drawing and all that, but like I got hailed for it, and I considered myself a creative at the time. But yeah, I remember that it's also at some point I thought that it's also probably the same for all the other creatives that I sort of met in the creative class, like in the arts class. So when clapping sets in, it sort of makes us think that what we were doing before is what we need to run with, and not to experiment in any other field or in any other kind of, you know, vague ideas, you know. So we tend to stick with what we got the claps. Is it on or for? Four, yeah.
This is actually very interesting.
You know,
I want to ask
so okay, yeah. So okay, you go ahead.
So just to add to your point about Kanye,
yeah.
you know, when we look at Yeezys, guys, let's be honest, when Yeezys first came out, the shoes, everyone laughed. Everyone said, "What is this? What the heck is this? These moon shoes?" Very, very few people clapped, but now it's worth over £2 to £3 billion, and a lot of people are clapping. And it's very rare for you to go to any country, whether you're in Botswana, whether you're in Mexico or wherever you're in Ghana to not see somebody wearing Yeezys, and for me that is impact.
And to add to that, I have particularly observed that most artists, the most currently celebrated artists, when they first started off, they weren't really appreciated because their works were felt to be too out of their circle. So they were not really appreciated in their time, but now we are saying about them. So and one guy told me that if you exhibit a work and all the audience in that particular setting is actually applauding your work, then you are probably not exhibiting at the right place. Either they are all your friends or they are all your family and friends or like whatever, but then if you exhibit a work and that work sort of gets more backlash than praise, then you're probably doing something right. With yeah, you're probably doing something right. Because people hate the truth. People hate the truth. And art is meant to like speak against and comment on societal things, especially contemporary art, and lend a voice to all those things that are going around us. And if people are actually like you exhibit the work and people are against that, probably you are onto something they don't want to hear. And the later generation are going to applaud you for it.
Yeah.
Probably not now, but later on you're going to be applauded and celebrated for it.
I mean,
so
Andrew can be, my witness. Like the number of things he's seen me do in my studio that has never come out. It's crazy. Some of the things, I'm doing now, I had to do them because I had to eat.
Larry.
Yeah, Andrew.
In terms of pedagogy or sort of teaching and learning, part of the kind of system creates that clapping, like the crew are standing around in a room looking at someone's work. We all clap at the end, or we all appreciate it, or we kind of critique. But I feel as though this might be answering the question before. It depends how we kind of go into it and what we want to take out of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, who's a really good example? Hervin Anderson, when he was at Wimbledon, his tutor, who was the dean of when I was at Chelsea, basically said that he'd go in Hervin's studio and tell him, try this, why don't you do this? Just trying to work with him. And basically said he walked away every time knowing that Hervin wasn't listening to him. Everything he said was like some sort of joke thing. And he was proud of that. Like the tutor was proud that he just didn't listen to him. So there's of teaching that we have to do, I think, is telling people not to listen to us in a way. You know what I mean? Give them that freedom. We're talking about freedom. Just saying. Don't clap. Come on.
This is a different kind of clap.
I like this. I like the reverberation. If we talk about sound, then I want to this. But
this is actually quite true. Yeah, it is very, very true.
Wow, that's profound. Yeah. And so are we willing to go back, go back to being a child, go back to the time when we had nothing, when everything was ours, but nothing was ours, just to be able to do things and create things and just destroy things and rebuild them, Are we all willing to do that now?
Now I'm a man now. I can't, there's part of me that's always like young and young at heart, but this world's too tough to be too innocent. You know what I mean? There's spaces for that innocence and I protect that. But there's a lot of real stuff that we're kind of dealing with as artists now as we mature. And those sort of things, maybe the freedom of a child maybe actually might be able to deal with it a lot more in one way. But as an adult, some of these things, we have to really deal with them and think about them. And through that maturity, a lot of thinking that goes on. So yeah, I just probably want to put that in the mix a little bit.
Yeah. Anyone else?
That's a very
Yeah, I think what I would say is that it's good to work from what Andrew just spoke about, that consciousness of an awareness of the world and like the environment in which we evolve, and to create from a place of the childhood, the naive sort of, you know,
A place of joy.
spirit. Yeah, where you can enjoy the process, where you can, like you were just pointing at, like make mistakes, where you can free yourself from the judgments whilst making or anticipating how work is going to be received. At the end of the day, what I also believe, the more I live, is that art is not supposed to save the world. Like, so if you take that off your shoulders, then you can create, you know? Because like otherwise, like do something else, bro. Like, you're not gonna save people. The thing is, I think anybody on this planet, I don't care who that person is, and then it's only if we remove music from art, right? Because if we consider music, then it doesn't work. But anybody on this planet will find more pleasure doing something creative than looking at something creative. There is no other way, because you achieve you fulfill, you become, you are. And this is it. So no matter how fantastic of an artist you are, if I give you a piece of paper or anything else that is inspiring for you, and I tell you to do something, you're gonna find more pleasure than looking at my shit anyway. So
And that's also a scientific fact, because when you're doing the things that you enjoy in creating, you're releasing dopamine, whereas staring at it is not the same thing. You know, you can only get that from the actual act of doing.
I'm not sure I can agree, because I went to see a show, I went to see a show at Tate Britain. I'm a painter, or I'm trying to be one, and saw a Denzel Forrester painting that I've never seen, and that was joy. And me trying to go back and trying to paint that, or paint the way he painted, would be painful to look back at what I'm trying to achieve out of what he's achieved. Do you know what I mean? So there is joy in just the looking, like going to a show, that feeling, like, you know, every now and again we go to a show and it's like, wait up, yeah, this is why I like art. This is why I love art. This is why I'm doing it. It's like we go to shows and like, yes, yeah, I went to everyone in here. I go to your shows and I enjoy them for what you've done, not for the process that you've done. If I could, do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's like
But I understand. But to me, the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm a firm believer that as a human being, the only way for you to like give purpose and sense and meaning to your life is to bridge or reach that place of fulfillment. And it doesn't mean that you're gonna be able to copy or be at the same level of anybody or masters or whatever, but it's just that feeling of fulfillment. I am where I am supposed to be, and I'm achieving who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and I agree with Ibrahim also on that level, because you know there is joy in looking. Obviously, I love movies. I can spend like 6 hours watching a movie a day, you know, and most of the things I know, for me, movies are the quickest way of reading books. So I normally like to, when I want to read a book and I don't have it in the market, like, you know, in the movie market, then I buy the book. But if it's there, I rather want to watch a movie and also see how people also understood that book, you know. And and so yeah, when you watch or when you look at something, there is obviously a joy in it, but it's not as creating. That is why Sarah also said, you know, it's scientifically proven that there is dopamine that comes when you make. You know, for me, we all have responsibilities, and I don't think there is anyone on earth whose responsibility is to look. There is anyone on earth whose responsibility is to sleep. You know, these things are done by everyone. But there are people who are paid to observe, and it takes a certain kind of art to be able to observe. That is different from looking. That is different from seeing. You know, artists are observers. We take notes as we look. That is observation. you know, and you can be credited for that, you know. So as we as we look at creativity in that sense, you know, creativity is much more rewarding, because not only do you get a chance to look whilst you create, but you also see things manifest out of nothing, and you see them come to being, and you see other people look at them and shed tears, or shed, you know, show a sense of happiness, or a sense of, you know, anger, you know, and all these things are part of the reasons why we as creatives have also attained a certain level of power in the society, where we are able to change the visual language of the world, and also the change the culture, you know, just by making people see a certain kind of thing over and over and over and over again, you know. So it's that responsibility that gives me a sense of joy and a sense of like fulfillment, as Ibrahim also said. Yeah. And Sarah also put a couple of questions. Should we go through them? I think I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed this. This is better than all the workshops I've done. You know. Yeah, we've taken a lot of your times, but yeah, I'm gonna read a couple of Sarah's questions. Yeah. What was the key nuggets you got away from this workshop?
Keywords.
What was the key nugget?
What's that word?
Yeah, it's literally like, what did you gain? Like, what understanding?
What's the most important thing that
this
workshop has taught you?
Well, intuition, simple as that.
What?
Intuition.
Intuition, okay.
Yeah.
Begin with intuition, okay.
I like that. Because we all have it, but we don't always listen to it.
Yeah.
And this workshop, we were forced to listen to it because it was all that we had to do.
Yeah, for me, it's, you know, it's taught me that just by coming together, you know, there is always something that sparks by gathering, you know, together as people. Because I probably forced myself to create certain things because I knew that in the end, Andrew is going to watch, you know, Ibrahim is going to watch, Prempe is going to watch, like Sarah is going to watch. And therefore I have to, even though I might not be in the space to create, I have to force myself to create, but not only create, but also create something that is meaningful, you know, even though it's coming out of nothing. Yeah, that's what I got from this.
I personally, because I said, the reason why I said intuition was, I personally don't like being put on a spot to create. Whenever it happens like that, I produce, like, I try to be careful and articulate with what I'm doing. And it turns out being trash. There's a lot of preparedness that goes into, like, my, like, before I draw, like, mostly I draw like fashion designing and such, and dresses and of clothes and such. There's a lot of preparedness that goes into it. So if you put them on a spot to create something, you are basically just killing me with that. So, so I mean, yeah. With this, I mean, I don't know, probably because the setup, I sort of just let myself go. Just decided to do something, like just not think of it too much, like just do something.
So the key thing you got was the fact that you were able to let go.
Yeah. Okay. Probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Should we move on to the next question, or Ibrahim and Andrew, do you want to add to it, or should we move on?
I'd just say that there's nothing really holding us. What I've really got from this is there's nothing else holding us back apart from ourselves. Do you know what I mean? It's really what kind of, yeah, really feel that there's nothing stopping us from making. And the stuff that we might rise to or be diminished by, we shouldn't let it exist in our world, kind of thing, if you know what I mean. So someone's critique or negative critique, we know that we can exist without them, and we do, you know. Yeah. Fantastic. So all this sort of praise and that sort of thing around painting, it's like it goes in one ear and out of the other. basically.
Mm.
You know, I'm never happy with my work.
Mm.
And we're like that. We're never happy with what we've done. So when someone says, yeah, blah, 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 that doesn't register, because in my thing, it's like, actually, no, I didn't complete that properly, or I would like to do that better, or that wasn't, you know, all these sorts of things. But yeah, positive and negative, critique, praise, whatever they want to call it, is not something that we should allow us to be shaped by. We should be strong about with either way. We should be sure in ourselves.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. That's really well said. Yeah. Ibra, do you want to go?
I think it's what everybody else said. I felt exactly the same. I'm taking everything with me here.
Cool. Yeah, I'll just put one or two more and then we'll call it a day. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah. I think one of them have answered about the collaboration. Do you think it taught you about collaboration? I think I mentioned that. Do you feel it could what? Yeah, do you feel it could be more, it could, like, do you feel the workshop could have been done better, you know, like, what do you think we could improve on to help, you know, people liberate themselves in their creative modes? Like, yeah.
Especially from a teaching point of view.
Yeah, from a teaching point of view, like when you get a chance to teach students, do you think the ways in which we went about this workshop, there are other things we could have brought in that could widen the understanding of students more, to be able to really freely think and to be free in their execution as well?
I think if I'm being honest, I'm your friend, I'm a tutor as well, and this is only to help, is that suppose at the beginning there was a question around direction, what we're doing, kind of thing. So just something like that, just to be really clear that it's laid out. That's kind of it. Everything else is, because you're trying to free people, you allowed time, and then you came back in to speak, and you know, so I think that was kind of the only thing that I would maybe pick up on, but there's a lot that comes out of the conversation, you know. So yeah, that's the only thing that I'd probably think about.
Cool. Thank you.
Do you all feel like this way of teaching is something that would really change just the art schools, you know, not just here in the UK, but across the world, in terms of the way that they think? If we're to just let people be.
Yeah, up to a certain point, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, I think, you know what it is? It's tied in history as well, because it's like each school has its own modus operandi and way that operates. Like Italian and Spanish schools are very classic. They don't even have a degree show. All they do is train. Chinese schools, all they do is like copy their masters. MA, you know, British schools, you're allowed to run free, but then there's this like really weird criticism that happens in people's faces. You know, it's so yeah, it's like there's space for different types of teaching, and I feel we're at this point where more experimental and freer approaches to teaching are a lot more widely accepted. But we're stuck in that thing where it's a degree and there's a qualification, and certain sort of things have to be ticked off. So within that, you have to teach, and with teaching, you have to impart information, etc., etc. So it's like what it is an alternative to the art school would be something that would be much more, and that we see that kind of happening in the alternatives to art schools, like the Turks Bananas, even what's his name, Fiesta Gates is stuff like that is alternative approaches, I think.
Yeah, and one talking about alternative approach, like I've been thinking about education in itself, like in a way that, imagine if we were able to sort of easily erase this whole idea of certification. Imagine the kind of things people would do, like just grading system and all these things. Like if they were no more, imagine how free people would be. Like it could be a starting point of true freedom in education and in creation, you know, and also in terms of funding, like accessibility, right? There are many people elsewhere who have tons of ideas that they could actually develop, but have no funds to be able to go into these kinds of spaces to allow other people that are, you know, so-called specialists to be able to help them develop those ideas, you know. So I'm talking about the educational setting. Like imagine if the way of paying tuition in higher education was that, you know, Andrew went to RCA, but his tuition was paid by, let's say, David Ajay, who was like a former RCA, you know, graduate, paid for Andrew's whilst he was coming. And then once Andrew is gone, he also pays for someone else's. Like, imagine if there was like a, you know, a system like that, everyone could have the chance to go into university to study, regardless of the kind of.
You know what it is though? This is where we fall apart a little bit, because we're questioning the art school, we're questioning the structure, but the first thing we do is offer a way into it instead of offering a way out of it and an alternative. Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I was gonna go there as well. And also the last part is that, you know, imagine if like all these institutions were able to sort of liaise with already existing, like, you know, organizations, or like, you know, thriving artists and thriving architects, and, you know, thriving like engineers, to sort of accept those that are coming out straight from the university to be able to work. Like imagine if they are able to, the school is like, as part of their responsibility to place you in a working field. You know, imagine how it could actually allow everybody to be free. Like, because I know that there are students who also finish uni and they are not able to get work for the first, like, let's say 5 years, 10 years, and they struggle a lot. So people like that cannot be able to help others get in, you know. But if the university is able to like allow them to straight away go into like working settings to be able to earn a living, then they can also be able to assist people to come in. So like this is what I've been thinking about in terms of alternative like ways of thinking about inclusive teaching practices. Yeah, but then again,
just to add to what Larry has said, I think coming back to the whole concept of nothingness, if we're to really bring about a whole new, I guess, perception of creation and how we do things, I think that we have to look at, you know, art school. I didn't go to art school, but from what I know, you know, you have to study art history. Even myself, I've had to study art history because we're told that it's very important. But how can we encourage students to create out of nothingness if in our subconscious minds we have all of the ideas of the masters, whether it's from contemporary artists or modernists or classic painters and things like that? So whilst we might think that some ideas are our own, actually, it's just that they're sitting in our subconscious mind. And with the subconscious, we know that everything that's in it then comes out into the conscious, which then comes out in terms of what we actually, create in the physical, if that makes sense. So I think we have to just dismantle and maybe scatter that, just to add to what you said, Andrew, about coming out instead of trying to go in.
Yeah, just external or alternative structures, or because what we're actually doing is going in and disrupting and maybe offering a slightly different space just by you being in my tutor group or me teaching you. I'm offering you something slightly different, and this seems to be something that's Aisha and Shades and the PG set is nudging forwards gently. They know there's something lacking and they need some of these spaces to be filled. And that's within the institution. So we're kind of going in the institution and kind of disrupting it a little bit, but we're always reliant on the idea of the institution, where this is maybe sort of the question is to allow that freedom. Is it freedom from qualification? Is it freedom from the name of the institution? It's purely about the work, but we exist in that world as well, that, oh, you went to that school, but we also go to those schools to, one thing make a point. Number 2, get what's ours. And number 3, make the most of it, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's a really odd balance. It's really like, you know, we go to these places because it's like, wait up, you don't really want us, but you know we're hot. So we're gonna come here, I'm gonna show you my thing. You want to engage with it because you know it's hot. But once I'm there, I've come with a mission, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, we can do that because that's what we're doing. We're in the institutions, we've been to the institutions, and we are learning about the institution and turning around what was lacking when we were in them, as in learning. But is there a point where we just cut that off and just say, okay, that's history, is a long history. Do we start with a new kind of history? Do we start at somewhere? Do we break it down? Do we disrupt, or do we just feed back into it? Because a lot of what we're talking about, we've learned from being in the institution, around the institution, but with our own minds to look, with our eyes open and say, wait up, you're standing in front of my work talking all kind of stuff. I don't even want to hear it because you don't get it. Do you know what I mean? It's all those kinds of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think we missed one very important thing that we haven't touched on, which is just integration. And in terms of, if we're looking at it from an educational standpoint, when we look at, you know, a lot of art schools, maybe 90%, maybe it's dropped now, but in terms of the teachers, you know, who do they look like? Do they look like myself and you? Do they look like any of us in the room? Most likely not. And I think if we're to really bring about change, we have to start and make sure that there should be some, you know, everyone should at least have someone who they can look at in their department or within the schools, because everything, unfortunately, is taught from a very westernized point of view. You know, it's great to learn about Picasso, it's great to learn about you know, just so many other.
Exactly. We don't even remember them. Fuck them.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like when you hear of, we don't, maybe they usually, maybe they might dash Christophili in there or dash in the obvious Basquiat, but it's like, forget just the Black artists. How about learning about, you know, more artists from the Asian continent, from maybe the more remote areas of the world, and so on. I think that we would get a lot further if we were to incorporate all of these ideas together, as opposed to just focusing on, you know, modern art, this art, and then boxing, you know, African art into a small section. I don't think we're going to get anywhere having that kind of mindset. And that's something that I'm very pleased to see yourself and Larry doing, because in the roles that you guys are currently holding as fellows, it means that you're actually in important spaces to actually make these decisions. So we need more people who look like yourselves and brown and just from other areas to be making these decisions. Otherwise, unfortunately, what's going to happen is we're going to find ourselves having these kind of conversations over and over again with very little change actually taking place, because we'll just get drops trickling in from the top as opposed to a whole bucket load of new ideas coming in from the top down.
Wow.
But what we also really need, I really agree with you, but what we also really need was, when there was a lack of education, even Akala writes about it, but, you know, when we were growing up, there was a Sunday and weekend academy for Black students. My father was part of like creating one of those. So this is where we're real about this. This is what we need to start thinking about. That's how serious it is. If we're really serious about this, we're falling into the thing.
I'm down, Andrew. If you want to start something like that, I'll be very happy to be a part of it. Yeah,
Ibrahim's like, this is what he's been thinking about.
Oh wow, wow!
This is what you're dealing with, Ibrahim, right? These
kinds of about alternative education,
or just, you know, starting a structure within.
Yeah. 20,000%. In the Gambia, it's coming. Like hopefully, that's why I say now it's weird for me. My life is taking a turn. It's like, you know, when you pray for things to happen, and then when they happen, you complain.
Yeah, you're afraid.
Yeah, that's my life right now. So I lost so many people and so many things, and it feels like, well, there's no other choice. I have to go. and I can't delay, I can't grasp on things that are here, and yeah, I have to answer my calling right now. So actually, I keep on doing these interviews. That's why I was interviewing you, Larry, and you, Andrew, a couple of months ago. I still have to go through that and interviewing artists to get to know what they think about their education, the good and bad, and find the best formula, because yeah, it's like, but when you start with that, then yeah, you have, as you all pointed out, you have to question the entire society. It's like, as much as we can create that platform, people have to get back into this mess. So how do we even change that mess as well?
Yeah. This is fantastic. And on that note, I would like to say a very, 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 very big thank you to all of you, you know, for your time, for the infinite, you know, knowledge and ideas and wisdom you've shared with all of us. You know, it's been really fantastic to have you all together in one space, which is a virtual space called Zoom. But yeah, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
This clapping is different again.
Yeah, this clapping is a different clap. It's
Safe, man.